Andy,
Yes, sir.
thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
What's happening on Hollywood? What's happening here?
So much is happening in so many different parts. It's as interesting and sort of chaotic a time as I think I can remember.
Before we talk about the market and before we talk about Sony, let's talk about you.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Where did you grow up?
Grew up here in Los Angeles.
Here in Los Angeles. All right. And how were you at school?
I was okay.
Yeah?
Not extraordinary, but okay. Fine.
When you mean okay, which were the kind of things you were more interested in?
Well, I was pretty good in math.
Hmm.
Uh,
You like music?
Well, I was gonna say I was pretty good in math and other general subjects, but I was a musician in
Oh.
high school. Was sort of where I spent most
It
of
makes
my,
sense,
most
right?
of my time.
You
I
like
don't
music,
know.
good in math.
I guess there is a connection there. I mean, I started out younger playing the drums, and then when I was in high school, I took up the trombone and
Wow.
played in the orchestra and the marching band. I was the drum major of the marching band. I
Wow.
conducted the school musical. So that's sort of how I spent my
Very
high school
good.
years. And then I didn't.
So you were entertaining already.
I guess so. I was interested in it, and then I didn't pursue it in college or after that. So went on to other things. But
Right.
That's
what
what I
about
did when I was
sports? You like sports?
I like sports. It wasn't my thing. I played a little bit of baseball, but I was too busy making music to be playing too many games.
That's interesting. You think working at Sony nowadays and your whole career on entertainment makes is the kind of culture that you grew up with, or how is that?
Well, I think the entertainment business, no matter what you're doing, is a very collaborative process. And so
Yeah.
whether it's sports and team sports, whether it's music, you're part of a band or an orchestra, whatever it is, nobody's really doing anything on their own. It's a team effort, and that's sort of really the nature of creating content or selling content or broadcasting, whatever it is in the entertainment business. It takes a lot of people doing a lot of things and working together to get the best result.
How did you start on the entertainment business?
I thought I wanted to be a writer,
Hmm.
and I got a job as a production assistant on a TV show, so that I could just sort of learn how it
Which
worked.
show was that?
You never heard of it.
Oh, okay.
It was a very short-lived show starring an actress named Angie Dickinson on NBC called Cassie and Company, and this was 1982, and
Okay.
came and went quickly. But it was sort of my first steps into kind of seeing how it all worked, and I thought if I want to be a writer, I'll be around writers and so forth. It was a short experience, and then I sort of decided I want to be in the entertainment business, but maybe I want to do it in a different way. I thought I wanted to go to law school, so I got a job in the mailroom at Norman Lear's production company while I was waiting to start law school, and I never went to law school.
Very different, huh?
Very different. I stayed there and got a job working for one of the distribution guys, and sort of worked my way up the ladder. And
You changed your school?
I didn't go.
You didn't
Oh,
go?
I didn't go to
Oh,
law
okay.
school. I mean, a couple years later, I actually ended up getting my MBA at night while I was working at the company. But I stayed at the company, and haven't really left, ever since.
And then you start being like for the business side?
Yeah. It was. I sort of.
Why business?
I guess. I don't know. Maybe it was the math thing, but I just sort of. I had an affinity for it. I was good at it. I understood it. I felt.
You like people?
I like people, and I felt that I could be creative in business, so that I wasn't completely sacrificing the idea that I had a creative side to me, but in a little less traditional way. I decided to be creative in business.
Let's understand how it works. We talk about a lot about innovation here, right? Because we're in Silicon Valley, we're like we have innovative people all over the place. So how is it being innovative on the entertainment business and in the business part?
Well, it's really challenging. I work at Sony Pictures, which is one of the big major studios, which is part of a big, multinational company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different experience and a different process and discipline than working at a startup or working at a small company or working at an entrepreneurial company. And so
Sure.
I think one of the positives is it's well established. There's a lot of resources, and you can do a lot of things. I think the biggest challenge we have is kind of maintaining the entrepreneurial spirit while working in a company that's been around for a long time, done things in a particular way for a long time, and is just a little bit more established in a particular way, and it's an interesting exercise.
Especially nowadays, right?
Yeah.
We're having this new kind of interaction, new kind of people getting formed. By the way, how do you get informed?
How do I get informed?
Yeah.
Some traditional ways, some non-traditional ways. I still read the LA
Newspaper?
Times and the New York Times every morning, and the Wall Street Journal on paper,
Uh-huh.
old school, and I get a lot of news online, on my phone, on my tablet, on
You watch
my
TV?
computer. Watch a lot of TV. I'm a TV.
Which channel?
I'm a TV executive. I have to watch a lot.
Which
of
channel
TV.
do you watch?
There are no channels. They're just
I
shows
just
that you
hope-
can find them in a
I
lot
just
of
hope
ways.
anything you watch, I just hope, besides that, you watch HandsOn.TV, right? I just hope that.
It goes without saying.
Okay. You've been working all over the world.
Mhm.
You've been developing channels all over the world, in Asia, Europe, Latin America. So what's the difference between those cultures?
The cultures are all different.
What's the biggest challenge? Sorry.
biggest challenge? I think the biggest challenge, I mean, a lot of our networks are American programmed for a local audience.
Right.
And a big,
So you believe the world is flat?
I do believe a big hit is a big hit, but not everything works everywhere. And our job as creators of programming services, of networks, is to find the balance and the combination of shows that are going to travel to as many places as they can, but are going to work in a local way. And we localize those programs through subtitling and dubbing, but also we create local programming in each region.
When you have to create local programs that will especially be in that market, you do it, or you prefer doing global products?
Well, we have to do both. When we start, it's with...
Is there a percentage? Like, let's do 30% local, 70% global.
When we start, it's 99% global. But we have to build the infrastructure, we have to build the revenue base, but as soon as we can, as soon as it makes sense, we start producing locally. It's, in a perfect world, it's 15 to 20% local for these particular kinds of what we call foreign channels. They're not meant to be 100% local channels because that's a different animal, that's a different expertise. Really the only place we do that is in India, where we started 17 years ago and got in early and started trying to do it with American programming, and it didn't work. We quickly realized it didn't work. And now our network there is 100% locally grown, locally created, and produced programming. But that's the only place where we do that, and we do it. The only reason we can do it in a way that works is we rely 100% on local management.
And then you have a lot of people to watch it, of course.
And they have a lot of people to watch it.
You were in a event. You were at a event in India,
Mm-hmm.
and you said that right now is the best time to produce content.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because there are so many buyers.
I wasn't there, by the way.
Were you not? But you read about it.
Yes.
There are so many buyers and so many outlets for programming. You know, in the old days, no matter what market you were in, there were probably 2 or 3 national broadcasters, whether they were privately owned or state owned. There were 2, 3, 4 over the air, and so you had very limited choice. You know, cut to 20 years, 30 years later, you have 200 cable channels in a market, and that was a lot of opportunity to sell programming. Now cut to now, and you have all of these online and on-demand outlets to get that. So using the U.S. example as the example, you used to produce for ABC, NBC, and CBS. Well, now you can produce for literally hundreds of linear networks, and now you have the Netflixes and the Amazons and the YouTubes of the world who are all buying original programming. So as a creator and a producer of content, the doors have opened even wider for people who want or users of content, commercial users of content who need the content to put on their pipes and fill the pipes, and it's hard to create. It's sometimes expensive to create, but more than expensive or not expensive, the creative talent and the execution of it is not a commodity. It's a very specialized thing, and it's the thing that kind of Hollywood still has an advantage over a lot of the world's outlets, because we've been doing it a lot longer here and so forth. But that's going to change quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about price.
Mm-hmm.
It's we go back like 10 years ago, you don't need to go like 50. If you go back like 10 years ago, it was much more expensive to produce any kind of content. Nowadays it's becoming a lot cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot of technology out there as well. So is it, you already say, it's growing the numbers of producers, it's growing the numbers of distribution,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, people are going to choose what they're going to watch.
Sure.
So you think in the future is going to shrink, and only the best producers are going to be in the business? How's it going to work?
There's a menu of the kinds of shows that are being produced. I mean, you say everything's getting cheaper. Well, the fact is, shows that are being scripted shows, for example, that are being produced for the networks and the cable networks are in fact get expensive year after year.
Mm.
The production values are higher. Talent costs continue to go up. So those shows, which ultimately garner the largest viewership, are more expensive. But there are alternatives. There's user-generated content, which is very inexpensive. There's content just made at a lower budget price for some of the less traditional outlets. So it's a whole mix. And so depending on what kind of programming you as a creator want to create or what your opportunities are, it's going to be all over the map.
Digital. Let's talk about digital. How is you guys looking for digital? And what kind of movement, what kind of producing are you doing?
Well, digital affects our business in a lot of different ways. As a producer of content, our studio produces for Netflix. They produce for Amazon. They produce for the other multiple users of digital content. We have a digital on-demand advertiser-supported network called Crackle that is an important part of our digital strategy and future going forward, and our production teams produce for them as well. And then digital, in terms of our networks around the world, it becomes a more important part of our strategy going forward, because we can see what has happened in the United States, which means it's going to happen everywhere around the world. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of when, and so it gives us time to be prepared for it. But we know as creators of linear networks that's not going to just stay that way for long in these markets, and that we're going to have to branch out and be involved in all aspects of distribution.
You think the distribution will be online in the future?
Sure. Not exclusively, not necessarily, but as another way for the consumer to get access to the content.
So we see the movement of Netflix. Let's say they start as a distributor,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're producers.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Well, it says that you have to be in both businesses. You need proprietary content that distinguishes you in a way from your competition. And so if you produce House of Cards with great A-level talent behind the camera, in front of the camera, you spend the money to get the production value so that you're as competitive or more competitive than the HBOs and the FXs and the NBCs of the world, and you spend the money to market and promote it. People who want to watch your show, they can't get it anywhere else, have to subscribe to your service. So it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's an important piece because it's the thing that makes you different than just another place to get movies, for example.
So then we talk about revenue. What are the revenue opportunities that you're looking and focus on?
Again, it depends which part of the business you're talking about. As a seller of content, we sell our content to all sorts of buyers, and if they're traditional broadcasters, they make their money mostly through advertising or through subscription and advertising revenues. If it's to a Netflix kind of subscription video service, they make their money through monthly subscriptions, and then they turn around and license product for us. For us, Crackle, which is our digital network, is all advertiser supported, so we get our money from advertisers. So it's all the same revenue streams, it's just a little bit sliced and diced a little bit differently depending on the particular business models.
Do you believe that it's correct to say that in the future, let's say nowadays, most of the content are free? Do you think in the future all this content, not all of them, but part of them will become a subscription content because there's no advertisers for all this? I mean,
I think it's always going to be a combination. I think we're still living in a windowing system, so depending on where in the life cycle of a particular show you want to get it, at some point you're going to see it for as part of a subscription you paid for, and at some point you're going to see it for free. It just depends on how current or how old it is, but these models are all changing. The windows are all shifting and collapsing, and if we're sitting here in 2 years, this is going to be a different conversation because things are moving so
very,
fast,
very
in a way and at a pace that they never have before.
Here comes my question, and I know it's not easy for you to answer, but what's gonna be the next year for Sony Entertainment Television?
Well, Sony Entertainment Television, if you mean our networks
Yes.
around the world, I think the next year and the next number of years are very promising. Our programming is terrific. Our brand is very strong where we are established around the world, and the markets are good, and subscriptions are increasing, and the advertising world is getting healthier again after some tough times because of the global financial issues. But the future is really positive for all these businesses.
When you talk about your team and recruiting, recruiting 10 years ago is different than it is now. What have changed in your way of doing it?
Well, around the world, and again, it depends on how young or mature a particular market is, but 10 years ago, in a lot of the markets we're in, there wasn't the level of expertise or professionalism in a lot of the areas that you need to put networks on the air. And so we had to bring people in, we had to do a lot of training, we had to recruit from outside and so forth. Well, 10, 15 years later now, the business has grown up, and the population of television executives around the world has grown. The level of expertise and professionalism has grown significantly, and so there's a lot more and better people to choose from, and so we can rely more on finding people locally than we needed to in the past rely on importing people or bringing people to do a lot more training. So in some ways it's gotten easier, but there's a lot more competition for this talent.
Sure. Leadership. Do you have any leader that you say, oh, this is the kind of leader that I kind of not follow, but I have some examples and I use it?
I think that I think Bill Clinton, not for political reasons, but for leadership reasons, is someone who I'm always, interested in. He has charisma, which I think is important for a leader. He's incredibly intelligent, important for a leader. But he's a great motivator, and he's a great. He rallies the troops well, and I think he's branched outside of his expertise to go into lots of other areas to do good, and that's great too. But wherever he is and whatever he does, you just watch the crowd respond to him, and I think that leadership is an amazing thing, and I think but the charisma and the ability to package it all together is
Yeah.
sometimes learned, but a lot of time you're just sort of born with it, and so I think that's kind of fascinating. So he's a particularly good.
I really like your example. I had the opportunity to be with him 2 years ago, and I love it. It's very good. How do you find yourself as a leader?
I guess you'd have to ask my people. I mean, I as I've gotten older and as I've gotten more experience and maybe a little wiser, I imagine I've changed as a leader. I think I always try to find the balance of being honest and candid with people, but also giving them permission to dream, to think outside the box, to try to be better, to try to do things differently. You have to be practical, but you also have to, reach for the stars. And so it's a little bit of a balancing act. And so I try to impart, I guess, a level of energy and enthusiasm in what we're trying to do, and be clear about where we are and where we're trying to go and how I think we want to get there, and then let people do their jobs. I'm a believer in hiring really good people and letting them do their jobs and not micromanage them or do it for them. I hope I do that pretty well, and we've had a certain level of success over the last number of years, and hopefully there's some connection there.
Very good, very good. What about the startups? Do you have the culture of being close to the startups and maybe investing in startups? How is it?
We don't do that now. Years ago, like a lot of these big companies, there was a part of the company that had a dedicated fund for investing in startups and experimenting and so forth, and Sony did a little bit of that. But really now we take more of not a venture capital approach, but more of a strategic approach, where if we find a company that we think is interesting, but that is doing something that's particularly linked to a part of our business in a strategic way, then that's something we might look at. But the challenge there again is connecting that startup or entrepreneurial culture with the somewhat entrenched, ongoing, bigger company culture, and not contaminating them, not hopefully getting the best out of them without smothering them or changing their culture. It's the classic thing where you invest in or acquire a company for that thing it is, and then you bring it into your company and you change the culture by definition and destroy what it is you thought you bought. I think that's one of the hardest things for big companies to figure out.
Very good. I really like our conversation. I'm coming to the end here, and now I'm going back to the beginning of our conversation. Do you still playing or?
I'm not. It's been such a long time. My kids play various instruments and so forth, and so I live a little nostalgically and vicariously through them. But it's been a long time since I picked up a trombone.
Good. I was just about talking about family. So you're married?
I'm married. I have 3 kids, 17, 13, and 9. So one almost out of the house, and a long way to go with the others.
Oh, very good. And they play? They're musicians.
They play piano. My daughter sings. She's a songwriter. There's a little guitar going on. So there's usually music in the house.
Maybe coming to the entertainment business as well.
We'll see. Ways to go.
Very good. It's very good to be with you, and I want you to give a last tip for the leaders, the entrepreneurs, and the people that are watching us right now.
I think the tip would be passionate about what you're doing, believe in what you're doing, stick to your principles, don't give up, don't get dissuaded by the bumps in the road, the hurdles you have to jump over. I think so much of success in these things is the people with unwavering tenacity that don't take no for an answer. I think are the ones that are the most successful. And that doesn't work for everybody, and a lot of people aren't like that, but the ones that are, I think are the ones who really prevail.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It was a pleasure to be with
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll see you next round.